We are recording.
Okay. All right. Good evening. Welcome to Hutchinson Elementary School's GoTeam meeting, where we will follow the agenda as it has been emailed to you and publicly noticed. I am pleased to call this meeting of the Hutchinson's GoTeam to order at 5:02 p.m. Our first order of business is to call roll. Secretary will now take the roll.
Good afternoon. When I say your name, please say present. Ms. St. Joy,
Present.
Antonio Cousins, Erica Willis, Jalecia Edwards, Bria Lundy present, Courtney Manning,
Present.
Akithia Atkinson, Zakiya Lescott, and Ms. Brenda Williams.
All right. So this team will only be able to take official action if a quorum is present. Is there a quorum present?
There is not.
All right, we don't have a quorum present. We will move forward with our action items. So our first order of business is to approve the agenda. This was provided to you and copies are here. Please take a moment to review. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, so may I have a motion to approve?
I guess we don't have to approve it though, because there's not.
Okay, we don't have a, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we will review and approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting. The minutes have been provided to you. Are there any corrections? All right. If there are no further corrections, we're going to move past that. We don't have to have a motion for that either. So we'll move to our discussion items. Let's now go ahead and prepare for the budget development presentation. Principal St. Joy.
All right. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes.
All right, let me start the slideshow. So this is actually our budget feedback session, and this takes place before the staffing conference. I will have a staffing conference with the associate superintendent and HR next week based on this information. We have our GoTeam norms. Only members of the GoTeam may participate. We invite and welcome every member to collaborate and listen to each other. We will follow the agenda's notice, and we will respect all ideas and assume good intentions. So in this budget process, we're at step number 4, the budget choices. We've done the data review, we've organized our strategic plan, and talked about the parameters in our strategic plan, but now we're on to our choices. And we're in step 5 of the process, where I give you a draft of the budget as presented and discussed. The GoTeam feedback session is scheduled for me to provide you an overview of the draft. This meeting provides the GoTeam an opportunity to discuss how the school's budget will be allocated for the programmatic needs and key strategic priorities, and this occurs before the staffing meeting. These were the parameters that we had for our budget. Based on our priorities, we want to improve the students achieving proficient and distinguished on the Georgia milestones, build teacher capacity in core content areas, reduce barriers for school attendance, recommend highly qualified staff for vacant positions, full implementation of district intervention initiatives, support social, emotional, behavioral, and mental well-being of students and staff through PBIS and the BASC assessment, and implement engineering and design program model that leads to us obtaining a STEM certification in 2025. So those are the things that we use to build our budget parameters. And you'll have to excuse me, I keep moving the camera. With the priorities, they're based on our school strategic plan. They focus on the APS 5. I'll lay out a strategy, which is the specific objective for the school's improvement. The ask, what I'm asking for with the funds, and what the amount of anything that is requested or reduced in the budget. So one of the first things with the recommendation for our priority, recommending highly qualified staff for vacant position. This supports curriculum and instruction, data, personalized learning. The strategy is to hire effective teachers to replace teachers that are retiring or resigning. So, because our budget was short, we would have to lose one instructional coach in our general funds. Right now, we have two funded in general funds and one funded through CARES. So going from 2 to 1 in general funds. We will also lose a 4th grade teaching position. Next year, there'll be 36 students enrolled, projected in FY24. So 2 teachers would basically split that 36 students. And as I say, when I'm saying lose one teacher, what I would do would take somebody that's already retiring. So it doesn't actually affect anybody that's physically there right now that's choosing to stay. That saves us $114,000 roughly with salary and benefits for the instructional coach and $90,000 for that teaching position. I'll hire 2 new teachers to replace retiring teachers. 3 teachers intend to leave in the upcoming school year. So we'll hire 2 new teachers to replace, and the cost of each teacher is $90,000. The next thing that we have strategically for our general funds, improve the percentage of students achieving proficient and distinguished. And again, it's essentially the same thing. In short, what we're going to be doing is removing one instructional coach from the budget. And also we will be removing or abolishing a teaching position that is somebody's retiring. And then we'll pick up 2 teachers, but that's based on people leaving out. So there are essentially 3 people leaving out, and then we'll replace 2 of them. With that also, it leaves us a little bit of extra money that I'll explain to you on the back end. So we may have the funds to hire back the teacher on the back end, but that won't be determined till they do leveling at the beginning of the school year, if that makes sense. Because right now we have, as I'll go on, I'll explain to you what our reserve budget is. The next thing we have is our CARES allocation. We are allocated $205,917. So the priority, again, build teacher capacity. We will fund 1 instructional coach with that. 1 instructional coach will be funded with that position. Supporting our social, emotional, behavioral well-being. We'll hire a staff member to communicate with the school and Hammond Park community via social media, newsletters. That person also does things for morale and staff celebration, which is our school communication liaison, which is the current position filled by Ms. Nelson. Have that come out of the CARES budget. The other thing would be paying for teacher stipends. I removed the teacher stipends from the general funds budget and I put them into the CARES budget. So that allocation is $16,000. And there is $44,000 for 1 additional, that's covering 1 paraprofessional that I had to remove from general funds. Something that I want to keep in mind with for everybody is that these positions now become year to year for all these people, and I've communicated to them because there is no CARES funding after next year. So these are all year-to-year positions, and that's been communicated to those people that's contingent upon the funds that we have. Sorry, my PowerPoint won't move. Hi, Ms. Atkinson. There we go. We automatically have $6,000 allocated for family engagement. Every school under an enrollment of $499 gets $6,000. So we would use $1,000 of that to fund any attendance initiatives that we have. And we would use the other $5,000 to support our APTT initiative. We have to choose a family engagement model. So the other $5,000 would go toward funding that 3 times a year. And that would be the make and take items that we purchase, the food, anything that we do around that, that's where that money would go towards. And Miss Rivera also does smaller monthly activities for parents, so it also goes to funding that. All right, so the budget function that's required, it basically tells you how many FTEs are supported by each budget item and the total number of FTEs, which is full-time equivalency. It also tells you the amount of funding that we're spending in the budget and the amount that goes per pupil. So essentially, it ends up being about 15,000 per pupil for everything, including bus transportation, maintenance, operation, school administration, everything that's in the totality of the budget. And we're going to look at it from a visual standpoint with the pie graph. This is basically where all of our funds are going. Keep in mind when you see instruction, that instructional tab is all of our teachers, and that's their salary and benefits. Our support staff, special ed is also under different improvement of instruction, certain instructional staff, media services, that is Mr. Ashley, his position, our media specialist, his position, and all those funding sources. But this is kind of where everything is allocated dollar amount from a visual sense based on that total breakdown. The next thing we have is reserves and holdbacks. So what was not captured right here is that there is $52,000 essentially on reserve. So what that means is that I've chosen a conservative budget. If for some reason we do not hit our enrollment, this money has not been allocated into the budget at all. They would take this money from us first. So it would not affect anything I currently have in the budget. If we do hit our number of 249, I get this 52,000. You also get $4,000 and change for every additional pupil. So let's say we end up with 270 kids by the time FTE comes. You would get this 52,000 and 4,000 per child after the 249. So going back to the previous slide where I'm like, we're going to lose a teacher, this is what I mean, that we could technically possibly purchase a teacher back, if that makes sense. And what we would do initially, if it wasn't enough for a teacher, my recommendations for that 42,000 is to hire a teacher tutor to push in based on whatever data we get at the end of the school year to support small group instruction and close any foundational gaps that we have. And that rate for a teacher tutor is $32.37 an hour over the course of 48 weeks, which is the majority of the school year, 25 hours a week, so roughly 5 hours a day. That would be a total of $38,844 that costs. And then the difference of that is $13,417. We could use that to go towards any additional materials and instructional materials that we need, any gaps that we find. These are questions to consider based on, I know I just gave you a lot of information, but are our priorities from our strategic plan reflected in this budget? So we can go through all these questions if you have any of them.
I guess my only question would be, why fourth grade over any other grades? I saw the enrollment of 18, but why fourth grade? Just considering the priorities, our Georgia Milestones priorities. How does
It's
that
the number and the enrollment.
So is it the lowest enrollment in the building?
Yeah.
The 18?
Right.
And what about the makeup of the third graders who are coming to fourth grade?
So they're projecting that it's only 38 based on, because I reached out to the budget department as to how they got their numbers. And they were very solid in that. Now, what I've learned this year with projections is they projected fifth grade at something like 40 and we're at about 54. But I had a little bit more funding for flexibility to save that. If I did not cut a teaching position, we would have still been negatively impacted by about $42,000. Now, technically anybody can teach. So if when we walk into the door in the fall and there are only 30 students in second grade, but there may be 50 students in fourth grade, I have the autonomy to make that move. So it's more or less the teaching, but based right now, the reason why I'm saying fourth grade is A is because it's the lowest enrollment, and B, somebody was already retiring in that position. So it's just kind of removing that position and not filling it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it just concerns me since it's an accountability grade and you know what the priorities being to increase student achievement. And I wonder, do we know offhand how big of a difference is it in enrollment and compared to a primary grade?
Yeah. So the primary grades were in the upper 40s, like 48.
Is
And
that
most of
all
them,
of them combined?
no, not necessarily each grade level. And we're still significantly under what the state recommends, because it's something close to 30 that the state recommendation is per grade level. So right now, based on the projections, that's where kind of I'm saying it's more or less a teaching position is being cut. If 50 kids walk in the fall, a change would have to be made.
Yes.
So it really looks at what walks in the fall. It's just based on the projections we have. That's where the logical space is to cut it. Because fifth grade has more, but it was definitely a grade level would have to go down to 2 by 2.
And
I
how
tried
many?
to fight it.
Yeah. No, I understand. There's always, something that has to be traded off. Okay. And so we would maintain 3 teachers on third grade and second grade, correct?
3 teachers, third grade, second grade, and fifth grade. Fourth grade is just the lowest enrollment projected.
So with those grades, you're looking at about 16 students if there's about 48 enrollment.
Yep.
So it's not really significant, the 16 to 18.
No, technically all of our classrooms are under enrolled, if that makes sense. We're under state guidelines. Technically, to somebody outside of a school building, I could cut every grade level to 2 by 2 and we'd still be within state guidelines. We'd probably have more money if I did that. But I know the reality is as small as possible. We still have EIP. It may look different in the fall, but right now, without the release of the reserve funds, it's really difficult for me to fund another teacher.
No, that I understand, yes. But I do think that that's a big trade-off. I'd say that whether it was third, fourth, or fifth,
You're correct.
and even if later teacher tutors, I think that's an awesome idea if they were able to come in and if they were, fresh to education or the building, it's much easier to grasp the primary concepts rather than the accountability grades, what's going on in those rooms.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be my only feedback.
Okay. Were there any other thoughts anyone wanted to share? There's a question there about sharing positions. We're still sharing our Spanish teacher and our gifted teacher. We don't have enough funds for a full-time person at this time. And other things that we have done that's not captured here because it's not coming from APS general funds. I have been meeting with Delta Airlines. Our partnership with them has concluded, but we're trying to renegotiate. So they are agreeing to $50,000 per year, and we have to go to them every year. And some of the things that thus far verbally they've committed to is supporting several of the applications that we use, like IXL is something like $12,000. The heaviest funded apps that support reading instruction specifically, I've gone to them to ask them to fund, in addition to funding more multicultural libraries for our school. So that's something that we've worked to kind of fill in the gap, and working to get, donations. But what the hope is that I'm actually confident, I can't predict it, that we'll hit the 249. This year we hit our number and then went over. So we did get some additional funds. We also have the way the funds work, you have to use it or lose it, if that makes sense. So I do have leftover CARES funding that I'm using to purchase additional supplies for next school year. So we won't be so desolate for paper and ink next year, because I'm going to buy them this year. And it's last year's impact was 600,000, and this year's impact was a negative 300,000. And unfortunately, they do anticipate a dip in our enrollment again next year. So we'll see what happens. And when I asked, they said the way they got these numbers is based on new developments. They look at the birth rates, they look at the trends of people moving in and out of the community, and that's how they get that number. Any other questions?
You just answered my question about how they got the numbers.
Yeah. So, because I was like, well, I made a stink. Because for me, it's really hard. They're like, the communications, you can get your teacher back in the fall. I prefer to secure everybody now. So you train, you give space for somebody transitioning in comfortably. You give space to thoughtfully selecting somebody on the front end, as opposed to saying, I need this, and scrambling. And it's significantly more stressful hiring somebody of quality in August. So I really, really, really did fight for us to get at least, something that wasn't negative $300,000, but that's just kind of the way the formulas work. Other things to take into consideration is, I'm charging our gifted person. There's extra dollars, if we increase our gifted population. It's not just a per pupil amount. There's a dollar amount attached to everything. So it's EIP, it's our special education designations, it's our ESOL designations, it is our gifted designations. So it's not just the number, it's some of the designations left. So that's how 10 kids ended up being that large dollar amount. So what's next?
Okay.
Oh, you have a question?
No. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were telling me to move on.
No. During this meeting, we will again, I think we just did this. So those are the recommendations that I have before the final budget, which we have to basically approve the budget after the staffing conferences. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 16th. February 23rd, when everyone is enjoying their vacation, I will be in a meeting with staffing, basically kind of explaining what we're trying to do as far as the staff, and and it is basically about the FTEs and the position, not necessarily the people attached to them. But again, Ms. Lundy, I hear your concern. I echo it. This is just based on projections of what they're telling me I'm going to get and what we can work with. It may look different when children actually walk into the door. Because the other thing is, if we don't hit the enrollment, the first thing they take is that reserve 52,000. And then if it's significantly below, it may be more. It's just really dependent on what walks in the door. And that concludes budget feedback slides.
Okay. All right, so thank you, Principal St. Joy, for sharing this information. I think we, it's very thorough, and we have a clear direction of clear understanding of what's happening with the budget. So thank you for that. We'll now move on to information items with your report, Principal St. Joy.
It's me again. Tag team back again. Hold on. All right. This will be short. All right. Today's principal report. Upcoming. This is our March calendar. There will be activities added to it. But we will have Maintenance Appreciation Day on March 3rd. Our MAP testing window opens on March the 6th, and it is National Social Workers Week. Shout out to our social worker, Ms. Freeman. As I said, we still, as of today, have the best average daily attendance in the South Atlanta cluster amongst elementary, middle, and high, in addition to the best against the Carver cluster. I always measure us under our associate superintendent school. So we teeter-totter with Heritage, but we've been able to stay 1 percentage point above them. So we have the best attendance. So please take out the time to support and cheer on Miss Freeman during that week. Show her love. Our report cards will be coming out mid-semester. There is a Teacher Professional Learning Day that is district sponsored for teachers, but no children will report that day. And at the end of the month, we have our School Library Appreciation Day and our final APTT night that goes in line with our family engagement model. That will be another opportunity to focus on a foundational skill. We'll be able to share our third round of MAP data with the parents, just so they know where their students are currently falling. And with 3 through 5, third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade, that'll be an opportunity for them to share what needs to happen in terms of Georgia milestones. Yesterday, I also did a parent meeting for parents to let them know kind of what's coming, when it's coming. We collected their information to send them parent informationals and give them access to the blueprint so they could see what their kids are expected to do and just have an understanding. Immediately upcoming before March, though, is we have winter break. Teachers have professional development on the 20th, and then everybody needs to take a long, relaxing break before we have 5 long weeks in March that we have to push through. So please take the time to relax, teachers, students, and all humans. And February 28th is our last day of Black History celebration. Although we celebrate Black excellence year-round, we will dress in African attire. Again, the MAP testing window opens the 6th. The first week we will take reading, the second week we will take math, and the third week we will take fluency. We need all students in school each and every day, but definitely on time every day. This assessment is important, this third administration, just because it's a good indication of any immediate gaps that need to close, and just where our students are walking into the milestones. There is a extraordinarily close correlation between how they performed last year on the map, where they were, and how they performed on the Georgia milestones. Last thing, we have our APTT night again coming on March 30th. This is our final one for the year. 65 parents attended in the fall, 58 in the winter. We hope to hit those same numbers again in our spring session. Last thing, there was a survey done, the AMP survey, Amplify Ed survey. Teachers took it, parents took it, students in middle school through high school took it. Today at my principal's meeting, I got the feedback for Emma Hutchinson from our family about their family to school relationship, and I was pretty excited because we'll see where Hutchinson ranks next to Atlanta Public Schools. So we were higher in the majority, no, it was all the areas than the district. So these are how parents feel about our relationships in terms of 1 to 2 way communication, collaborating with community, collaborating with families, family wellness, shared power, strategic family engagement support, of student success, warm and welcoming. There's just more details on kind of how basically it was a strongly agree, disagree, or neither, and the majority of our results were favorable. So I thought that was important to share because we get concerned about parental involvement and engagement, and a lot of times we hear the complaints. And I think it's important to note that there are people that feel really good about the communication they get from us here at Hutchinson. And our next GoTeam meeting is the 16th of March. And that concludes my report.
Great, thank you, Ms. Thank Joy. Are there any additional information items? Okay, we do have an announcement from the GoTeam office. Declarations for GoTeam elections are open until February 28th. We will need both parent or guardian and non-supervisory instructional staff candidates. If you are interested and know if anyone else who would be a good fit for the team, please direct them to the apsstrongschools.com to declare their candidacy. If you have questions, please contact the GoTeam office. Does anyone have any additional announcements? All right, we have reached the end of our agenda. Any additional business at this time? So the meeting is adjourned.